Part 1. The Storm Begins. Elijah had always been a man of strong faith. Growing up in a small village nestled between rolling green hills, he had learned to trust in God's provision. His parents, humble shepherds, often reminded him of Psalm 23, assuring him that no matter the hardships, the Lord would always lead him to still waters. He had spent his childhood running through the fields, feeling the soft grass beneath his feet, listening to the gentle sounds of the river that wound its way through the valley. Life had always been simple, predictable, and full of the quiet joys of nature. His father, a man of wisdom and patience, often told him that the key to a shepherd's success was not just strength, but trust. Trust in God, in the land, and in the sheep. "They know my voice just as we should know the Lord's," his father would say, guiding the flock with a steady hand. Elijah believed these words with all his heart. He had seen his father's unwavering faith and had always aspired to be like him. But when tragedy struck, Elijah's faith was shaken in ways he never thought possible. A sudden and violent storm swept through the village, unlike anything they had ever seen. The wind roared like a wild beast, tearing roofs from homes, toppling trees, and flooding the lowlands. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the terrified faces of those who ran for shelter. The very foundations of their village trembled under nature's fury, and when the storm finally passed, it left behind a trail of destruction that could not be undone. Homes were reduced to rubble, crops were drowned under the weight of the rain, and worst of all, lives had been lost, including his father's. The man who had been his guide, his protector, his greatest example of faith, was gone. In the days that followed, the village was left in mourning. Families searched through the wreckage, hoping to salvage anything that remained of their old lives. Elijah, though devastated, had no time to grieve. His mother and younger sister depended on him now. He was no longer just a boy dreaming of becoming a great shepherd. He was one. The once peaceful valley now seemed dark and threatening. The same fields where he had once run freely now felt barren. The river that once sang with life now whispered sorrow. Every time he led the sheep out to graze, he felt the weight of his father's absence pressing upon him. Every decision he made carried the burden of responsibility. Could he truly provide for his family? Was he strong enough to lead? And deeper still, a question gnawed at him. Why? How could God allow this to happen? Where was the green pasture he had always believed in? Why had the Lord taken his father, the most faithful man he had ever known? Doubt crept into his heart like a shadow, whispering fears he had never dared to consider before. Part 2. The Journey Through the Valley. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elijah sat by the river's edge, staring at his reflection in the water. The golden hues of the sky melted into the rippling surface, distorting his face, making him feel like a stranger to himself. He clenched his fists, trying to hold back the frustration, the sorrow, the fear. Footsteps approached from behind, and a gentle hand rested on his shoulder. It was his mother. She sat beside him in silence for a long moment, watching the river flow. "Elijah," she finally spoke, her voice soft yet steady. "Even in the darkest valley, he walks with us. We may not understand his ways, but we must trust that he is leading us somewhere greater." Her words were meant to comfort him, but they only stirred more questions in his heart. How could she be so certain? Did she not feel the same emptiness that he did? He nodded slowly, not wanting to argue, but deep inside he wondered. Was she right? Could he still trust in the Lord's plan when everything around him had fallen apart? As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Elijah made a silent promise to himself. He would keep moving forward. He would carry his father's staff, tend to the flock, and protect his family. But as for his faith, that he was no longer sure of. Determined to provide for his family, Elijah took the flock to graze beyond the familiar pastures, venturing into unknown land. The journey was long, filled with trials. Wild animals lurked in the shadows, and the nights were colder than he had expected. Each day, exhaustion weighed heavier on him. One evening, a sudden cry from his sister startled him. A wolf had entered their camp, eyes locked onto the sheep. Elijah grabbed his staff and ran toward the beast, heart pounding. He had never faced such danger before. Could he truly protect his flock as his father once did? With a deep breath, he stood his ground. The wolf lunged, but just as it did, Elijah swung his staff with all his might. The animal hesitated and, after a moment, retreated into the darkness. Shaken but victorious, Elijah sat down, grieved. Part 3. Finding still waters, days turned into weeks, and Elijah's faith grew stronger. He led his flock through barren lands, always searching for the still waters his father had spoken of. One day, after a long trek through dry, cracked earth, Elijah's sister pointed to the horizon. "Look," she cried. There, beyond the hills, lay a lush green valley, untouched by the drought. A river glistened under the golden sun, its waters clear and abundant. Tears welled in Elijah's eyes as he realized this was the place God had been leading them to all along. Falling to his knees, he whispered, "You restore my soul." His faith, once shaken, was now unbreakable. Part 4. The table before him. Elijah's flock thrived in the new valley, and soon others who had suffered from the storm found their way to him. He shared the land, the water, and the lessons he had learned along the way. One evening, as they sat around a fire, an elder from a nearby village approached him. "You have done well, young man," he said. "You have provided for many, just as the Lord provided for you." Elijah smiled, realizing that his journey had not been about survival. It had been about faith. The dark valley had only been a passage, a test of trust leading to something greater. That night, as he looked at the stars, he whispered the final words of Psalm 23. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever."